So one person from our community asked a very great question. What do actually incubators need?
Eventually all these incubators are looking for people with a drive. You get better access to investors, you get better access to the government. The government is also actively looking to support innovators, entrepreneurs, and these incubators are a medium through which government is doing its work.
What is the requirement to get into such programs?
I think it's important that startups also start figuring out which organizations can provide them with what resource. Today's day and age, if you're serious about an idea, automatically there are certain things on ground you would have done.
Now we'll get into the specific questions. And these specific questions, I was not able to rephrase these questions because I don't know who have written this, and the questions were so heart touching questions. Right. So I'll go with the first question. I was applying to a few accelerator programs, and generally they are asking, "Ki, are you from IIT or IIM?" So how do this person convey that IIT IIM की जरूरत नहीं है? Even I can build a startup, and this person is a CA finalist. So how do you address this?
So yeah, I mean,
I mean, sorry to cut you. Are even these programs, incubations, accelerators, venture studios, are even looking for such IIT, IIM that pedigree, or it was just an edge case?
so definitely, I can say for sure that there are many startups in India which are non-IIT, non-IIM founded startups in India. The general notion is that if you are from an IIT, obviously you've cracked the toughest exam of the country, and that you bring a certain skill and talent to the table. And you also bring a large IIT alumni network along with you, right? So definitely being an IITian or being from IIM, there are certain advantages because a lot of your peers are in leadership of some of these big companies. A lot of your alumni are in the leadership of these big companies. A lot of your alumni are seasoned entrepreneurs who started successful companies. So there are certain advantages that IIT IIM brings to the table, but definitely the way the ecosystem is today, like 100% that there are amazing entrepreneurs coming from small towns, coming from rural areas, uh, coming from tier 3, tier 4 colleges, which people would not even have heard about. But the important thing is now the IIT or IIM is a tag that automatically it's a brand that gets attached to an individual, and automatically the individual has certain skills, certain talent because of having you know uh, exposure to this group in their college, and so definitely there's a certain tag that IIT IIM individuals bring, but uh, when one does not have that tag, how does one prove to the world that, hey, I am also equally capable, right? And it's not through words that one can do that, right? And there have to be certain projects, certain achievements, certain research or tests that you've done, something to show. Uh, Definitely, if your college name is not speaking for you, your projects, your achievements, or something to show to the world that, hey, uh, that I may not have a big degree, but I definitely have the capacity to execute and take my startup to the next level.
Yeah.
Right. So if you don't have that brand behind you, but at least have certain talking points, have these projects that you can show, uh, start working on your idea and certain experiments that you can talk about. There has to be something uh, to fill that void, right? So, but definitely, like 100%, the way the ecosystem is right now, uh, it's a level playing field. Uh, uh, there are amazing government programs in partnership with incubators, which provide support to anyone who wants to make a difference in this world, right? Like anyone who wants to start up, who's passionate about it. I don't see any reason why people can't do it in today's day
Hmm.
and age. There is support. There is support. So one need not be only from IIT to do that.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
So what I feel is like main critical thing is obviously execution. Ideas come and go, but execution is the thing. I many people approach 18 startup and personally me also saying that just show me a way where I can get funds. Obviously they'll be in very early stage to raise funds. So I'll be just saying them only one thing is investors only invest if they think that you can build this company even without the investors fund. So I think the main key is in execution, not in the pedigree of IIM and IIT.
Absolutely, I think bang on. Like there is a funding is a certain milestone in a startup's
Hmm.
journey,
Hmm.
but to reach that milestone, there are certain steps before that that one has to do,
Yeah.
and it comes by talking to seasoned entrepreneurs who have been there, done that, talking to mentors, talking to other startup founders. That one learns that what those steps are, what
Hmm.
does one have to do to achieve that funding, right?
Yeah.
Like, so definitely funding is a milestone, and really one can't. Of course, funds are important for anything, right? Like it is a big objective, it is a big milestone, but uh, there are many other things that one could do
Hmm.
to become fundable, right? Like
Hmm.
one is you're running after funds, but one the other thing is to prepare yourself and your organization to be fundable.
Yeah.
And what are those things? Are things which one discovers in the process of
Yeah.
starting.
Nice. So I'll get into the next question. I mean, even this is a specific question. Okay, so this is a bit confusing, critical question. So, if a company is bigger to be incubated and smaller to be accelerated, okay, in that case, how a company can raise capital? Capital, I think, is meant to in the perspective of grants. How do I raise grants? My company is not very small to get incubated.
Yeah. Let me understand the question. Like company is big enough to not to be incubated,
Yeah,
but small enough for an accelerator.
and
And
smaller to be accelerated. He is neither big nor small.
right.
So how do he raise fund?
See, uh, forget about the size of the company, right? Let's look at what are the sources of capital available
Hmm.
for a startup founder. One could look at government grants. So you keep track of all these incubator call for applications. Typically, right when you're starting out, you get access to these grants,
Yeah.
and you can you can look at this channel, right? And there are some amazing programs going around like Startup India Seed Fund Scheme. DST has its own Nidhi program. Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, MIT, has its own Tide program. So there are these number of these incubators which are with the support of the government, channeling seed fund to very early stage. In fact, idea stage innovators also. So look at what are your capital needs and for what you need it, and accordingly you could tap into some of these grant opportunities. So there are these grants, at the same time you also get investments via these incubators, right? So first thing is forget big or small or whatever size of organization you are, but understand what your capital needs are.
Hmm.
How much capital do you actually need?
Hmm.
And then that has to match with the ticket size of the organization that you're approaching, right? So and again, this is something that a lot of these incubators teach, is to how to assess how much capital I need,
Hmm.
right? um, and there are very simplistic frameworks to it and complex frameworks to it also, but overall, uh, one needs to be clear that this is the kind of capital I need. Sometimes it's important to take that step back and also assess if you actually need investment or could you rather just go for debt, right? Sometimes that could be the path and a very different path as compared to raising investments. So understand what level you are at, understand what are your capital requirements, understand how you're going to use that capital for what you need those uh, you need that capital, and accordingly look for organizations. It could be the friends and family, it could be incubators and government, it could be early stage investment funds, right? So look at all these different categories and see where there is a match, right? So it's as simple as doing that. And if uh, debt is the route, then you go the banking way. Of course, banks have a very different lens of looking at. Uh, so it's a combination of these. You have government grants, you have debt, you have equity, you have debt linked, different kinds of instruments that are there in the market. So assess your capital needs, figure out the ticket size and focus areas of the organizations that you're applying for, and see if there's a match. And yeah, so and you'll get a good idea by looking at the past investments of those organizations. Look at the organizations they have supported, be it in terms of grants or investments. Look at the portfolio, look at the alumni. Maybe, if possible, talk to some of them. Uh, that will give you really good clarity of how to go about this whole fundraising piece.
So there is nothing to give with big company, small company for an incubation.
So a lot of the government programs do specify years of incorporation. Some programs require you to be within 2 years.
Okay.
But technically, Startup India defines a startup as uh, uh, within 10 years of incorporation, right? But each programs have their criteria. Uh, uh, some look at uh, pre-commercialization, which is you're not out there in the market yet. Some look at commercialization stage where you're out there in the market, and uh, so typically these the call for applications and the documents that are put out explain in detail how what sort of startups they're looking for, and look at those and see if you fit that. And yeah.
Yeah. So, what are the general terms while an incubator invest? I mean, to even get a grant, what are the general terms? I mean, I know that there are industry specific incubators and they have their own terms, but in general, so what are the terms?
So again, incubators are also businesses in the end, right?
Yeah.
And they also in startup mode.
Hmm.
And the challenge in the incubation industry is that you're working with a customer segment, which are basically early stage founders who do not have that much capacity to pay, right? But incubators also are a business and they also have a business model. Now, different organizations have different business models. Some of them charge for space, some of them have an equity and a program fee component. Uh, so there are different variations of it. Some are running, some have backing of certain sponsors who subsidize the program costs. So it's free for the entrepreneurs, but uh, 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 there could be an equity component to it. So it's a combination of different things. I think they should understand the terms, uh, which could typically. I also know of organizations which take revenue share, uh, and so yeah, like I think it becomes a really a cost and benefit analysis, right? Look at the lifetime of your entire association with the organization. Look at the benefit that you're going to get. Compare it to the cost that you're giving out now, right? And sometimes certain organizations have very niche infrastructure and support systems that are hard to find anywhere else in the market,
Yeah.
right? Like I was talking to a founder recently, like there are certain equipment that are there in probably a very few institutions in India, and the product that the person is building requires that such sort of equipment, right? Like so, such organizations can command a slightly more premium on the services they offer, but essentially it's like how uh, look at these organizations as strategic partners, and in return there's a certain cost associated with it, could be in terms of a program fee or a equity component to it, but yeah, evaluate it from that perspective.
Yeah,
And
but I mean, I remembered a question the person very specifically asked me. Incubation programs or accelerator programs, I mean, as you said, they have their own terms. They might charge an equity or they might charge a program fee. But why do they even charge? I mean, I understand that they are businesses, but some incubations are non-profit organizations, right? So, technically speaking, they might be getting funds from government. So, what is the need of charging a early stage startup founder who doesn't even have money?
so uh, every organization has to have a certain business model, right?
Hmm.
Like incubators are also businesses in the end.
Yeah.
Even if they are structured as non-profits or Section 8 companies,
Hmm.
they also have people on their payroll
Hmm.
who bring these programs to you, who develop these programs for you.
Yeah.
There's so much amount of effort that goes on at the back end in terms of creating that mentor pool, like creating that connects to investors, in mobilizing seed funding and capital, in spending time with the startups, in the logistics of the program.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of cost associated with it.
Hmm.
Now, sometimes you get sponsors or donors who are willing to subsidize that cost,
Hmm.
right? And such organizations are able to bring uh, free programs to the entrepreneurs, right?
Hmm.
But um, there are certain, not everyone has that luxury, right?
Yeah.
Like not everyone has the luxury of being supported by the government, or you have big donors or sponsors backing you. um, so for those organizations, it's important to, for the sustainability, financial sustainability of the organization, to uh, uh, sort of figure out what model they want to work with the founder. As long as it's not exploitative, it's fairly founder friendly, as long as the relationship is rooted in the fact that both of them are working towards the success of the startup, I think like it, uh, like organizations need to sort of charge, and I don't think we'll reach a stage where these incubation and acceleration services will be provided free of cost to founders.
Hmm.
I don't see that happening uh, because it's a lot of resources.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll reach that stage where that will ever happen. And so, yeah, like really,
Hmm.
it's just about uh, fundamental business principles of the challenge in this world is you're serving a customer segment
Hmm.
which do not have the capacity to pay.
Hmm.
Now, which is where the innovation of the whole incubation industry and the space is to still deliver on those services to
Hmm.
help founders with resources, but do it in a very innovative way, uh, in a manner that the organization is able to sustain itself,
Hmm.
right? I think that's where the innovation and the, as people who are working within the whole sector need to introspect and figure out how they're going to go about it. Because in any business, in the end, um, you need to have a paying customer, right? And it's just a little different in this case where your customer does not have the ability to pay. Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, so I think that's where people are using innovative ways of combining
Nice, nice.
debt and equity and
Yeah, yeah.
all these complicated instruments coming up, CCDs,
Mm.
convertible notes, and all that to make it easy for founders to.
Okay.
Uh,
So finally, I would like to talk about Startup India Seed Fund. Who are eligible, and how do we get that? And what is the amount?
Under the Startup India scheme, there are, I don't know the exact number, but I think more than 220 incubators who've been empaneled under the Startup India Seed Fund scheme. Uh, these organizations are dispersing seed funding on behalf of Startup India. And There are two categories. One is the uh, 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 startups at a very, very early stage, pretty much at an idea or a POC stage, where one could get like a grant of 20 lakhs.
Hmm.
Then there is a when you're at a slightly more advanced stage, where you end up at commercialization stage, you could get up to 50 lakhs of funding
Yeah.
uh, via debt or debt linked instruments. Uh, so uh, yeah, so pretty much it's an amazing scheme that the government has come up with. It's been active since 2021, uh, and it's helped so many innovators and tapping into funds at a very early stage, and also to scale up their businesses. So yeah, like it's a very streamlined process. There is a portal where you go out and apply. You can give preferences for three incubators. So you can choose uh, based on your assessment which incubators you would want to work with, and accordingly give your preferences. And these incubators will evaluate your applications, accordingly decide if they would like to partner with you. They'll invite you for a pitch. There's a pitch before the incubator seed management committee, the standard process for so yeah, like this is really the benefit of the whole
So, I
startup.
mean, you mentioned कि three incubation programs they can select. So, uh, uh, what if they get rejected in three? Can they reapply?
So um, if you're rejected under Startup India Seed Fund scheme, um,
Mhm.
you can reapply after 3 months. And the philosophy is that you take the feedback that you have received, work on that feedback,
Hmm.
and there's a gap of 3 months within which you cannot apply.
Hmm.
And then after that, you again you can get onto the portal and apply. So yeah, so that's the process for.
And a very curious question: how is the process? I mean, is it slow? Is it fast? I mean, since we have a common say, if government involved, then it will definitely be slow. So, how is the process with seed fund, startup in a seed fund?
See, because you get like a mix of both, right?
Yeah.
Like, so we can skip this question, like because you always have like you'll have both certain institutions which are stuck and not able to move forward on that scheme.
Hmm.
At the same time, you would have many organizations which are dispersing in a timely manner, and like everything is happening perfectly. So like uh, natural principles everywhere. So
Hmm.
it's not uh, majorly it's going on well, right?
Nice, amazing. Yeah. So, finally, can you list out a few incubation programs or accelerators and venture studios for early stage startup founders?
So when it comes to incubation programs, it's pretty straightforward. Like you can just a rough Google search will give you a list of all the incubators across India. Do some research about them, talk to people. I think fairly you would get some idea of which are the good ones and what is the kind of support that you can get in each of these organizations. So do your research well, and fairly, I think uh, there's enough out there for you to figure out which ones you want to get into. In terms of accelerators, of course, you have right from international ones to Y Combinator. At Build 3, we run our own Build 3 Impact Accelerator for early stage impact founders. And a lot of good IIM, Ahmedabad's incubator, IMA Ventures. That's an amazing incubator. So you have these options, and I think by talking to more people, more founders, being in the startup ecosystem, you'll get exposed to all these different organizations. You'll get a good pipeline of call for startup applications on your WhatsApps, on your emails. Keep track of those. Keep your documentation
It's,
ready. Keep your documentation ready. As soon as there's a call, you should be in a position to quickly apply and take benefit of these programs. And yeah, like pretty much uh,
nice.
there are many programs that you can check out,
Mm,
and
nice.
definitely as part of the Build 3 team, I would highly recommend that you look at the Build 3 Impact Accelerator.
Mm,
And
nice, great insights, and I had a great time with you. Thank you so much, Girish.
thank you.
Yeah, so if I get any other questions regarding to incubation programs, accelerators, I'll call back again. I'll disturb you again and again. Thank you.
Super,
Thank you so
super,
much.
super, Teja. I think
Yeah.
great chatting with you, and all the best with all the wonderful work that you guys are doing, making a dent in the startup ecosystem here. And yeah, all the best to you, all the best to the people who are watching our podcast. And
Yeah. Thank you.